Early in the 1830s, the administration of Andrew Jackson commanded 5 tribes of Indians in the southeastern United States, Georgia, Tennessee, Mississippi, North and South Carolina, Alabama, and Florida, to move further west away from white settlements. In a series of executive orders, acts of Congress, and forced treaties, the Indians were guaranteed new lands in exchange for the old, which were to be open to settlement with or without Indian permission. Their improved fertile lands were eagerly sought, and Jacksonian democracy, not indifferent to backwoods politics, made Indian removal an aggressive, basic policy. Only a very few were willing to go. The others petitioned the President and the Congress for relief. Some minor consideration was given, mainly because these 5 particular tribes seemed to be so different from other Indians, so surprisingly well educated in the usages of organized society. In fact, their dress was a likeness of the white man's, contrasting sharply to the traditional Indians. For example, Sequoyah, the legendary Cherokee, had only passing respect for color, as seen in his famous turban, but otherwise looked as if he could have served in Jackson's cabinet. His name was George Guess, but in Cherokee, Sequoyah and his legacy is all around us. It was he that devised by himself a system for his people to read and write. But an even more revealing portrait of the age is that of John Ross, who led the Cherokees for more than 40 years. In every way, the man of style and charm in 1832. Ross and Sequoyah demonstrate forcibly the widespread intermarriage between the 5 tribes and white missionaries and early European pioneers. It was this fact that accounted for their adoption of the white man's manner, from living in some instances on plantations to owning Negro slaves, from sending their children to school and church to having constitutional self-government. Yet in the end, neither Jackson nor the Congress would yield. No longer could the 5 tribes live on the lands they loved, the streams, the hills, the forests, where in the words of the Choctaw chief Pushmataha, they had grown up as herbs of the woods, only to be broken off like a dead branch from an old tree. They marched into exile on what they called the Trail of Tears, several overland routes of 1,200 miles. Along these trails, fronted by federal militia, 60,000 Indians at various intervals often went without essential food and clothing in the midst of winter. More than 10,000 died, sometimes left unburied beneath a bush. Those that survived never forgot, nor have succeeding generations. To many Indians living today, one of the most vivid memories of their childhoods was the constant telling and retelling by their great-grandparents of the misery of the Trail of Tears. One such Indian is 80-year-old Mose James of Tuscahoma. The Indian people had long days of suffering. They had to walk with no shoes, sleep with no blankets. When they got sick, they were left behind. The women cried many tears when their young died, but they had to keep going. The soldiers would say, "You can't stop until we get there." When my people got to Oklahoma, the white man said, "These are your lands as long as the water runs and the grass grows." Although the 5 tribes wound up in close approximation, their roots were as different as their languages. The Choctaws were first, then the Cherokees, the Creeks, the Chickasaws, and finally the Seminoles. Still another Indian who remembers the stories told more than half a century ago is 76-year-old Albert Pike of Tallahena. It hurt the old people most. They didn't know where they were going or why they had left. When their clothes wore out, they walked in rags. The army had promised money to keep the Indians on their journey, but the army brought no money. The Indians didn't hate the army, but they were hurt because they were lost.